Hello, I'm Zaccura and welcome back to my channel. We are currently in the full swing of autumn, at least for those of us in the northern hemisphere, and it truly is my favorite time of the year. Seeing all the leaves turn yellow and red seemingly overnight, coupled with the crisp weather, just gives me such calm, cozy vibes and reminds me of the approaching holiday season. Though in the midst of all this calm, I had a rather surprising and startling experience recently, which inspired the artwork in this video. And it all has to do with a particular big black bird. The story starts a few weeks ago. I was working on my previous video, which was my first video back after a 10-month hiatus, and it was a really just gorgeous, beautiful, and quiet day, and I was spending it alone in my studio. I was in the middle of recording the voiceover for that video, and there was a part during that recording when I became a bit overwhelmed with emotion and got all choked up. In that moment, I was just flooded with feeling everything that I had felt and gone through in the last year, the tough times, the dark times, the struggle, and also the love and the gratefulness for the people in my life and the strength that it all culminated to, and the peace of that moment sitting in my studio. So I paused my recording to try to get myself back together because I didn't want to sound croaky throughout the rest of the video, and I took a deep breath, looked up out of my window, which was right in front of me, in front of my art desk, and there it was. This big black bird I had never seen before was sitting on some electrical wires right outside my window, and it was just literally staring right at me, right into my eyes. At least that's what it looked like from my point of view. My initial thought was that it must have been a hawk because it was so big and I have seen hawks around this area before. But then I was like, wait a second, hawks are not pitch black all over. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a raven. For some context, ravens are not common in my area at all. We do get crows. I actually have a friendly crow that sometimes hangs out in the tree and just goes caw caw all day. But not ravens. There have only been a handful of raven sightings in my area. I had never seen one before. In my whole life, probably, even before I lived here, I don't think I've ever seen a raven. So back to the story. I'm just sitting there, like tears on my face, just kind of in awe looking at this bird. And eventually it looked away from me and I kind of snapped out of it and I was like, oh shoot, I should get a picture and some footage or something. I mean, I'm a YouTuber, you know, get to work, girl, what you doing? So I frantically like grabbed my camera that was on my table next to me, only to realize, of course, it was out of battery. So I leapt across my room, all the while keeping one eye on my window to make sure the raven didn't fly away. But then I looked down to pop in a new battery, and of course, you know what I'm gonna say. When I looked back, the raven had gone. Poof, vanished, and I haven't seen it again since. Seeing this raven, this large, just gorgeous black bird sitting right there looking at me right in the eyes while I was in that state of emotion was such a profound and startling experience. I am definitely not known for having a deep connection with animals at all, but this encounter really stuck with me for days, or I guess weeks at this point. I just kept on thinking about it and sort of half hoping I would see it again and half hoping I wouldn't, because it was just that surprising, that startling. It didn't feel ominous or scary, but like it was just an experience that really wanted my attention. And so I decided, even though I didn't get a reference photo, I should draw a raven. And to help with that, I hopped online and did some research on the spiritual meanings associated with ravens. I find whether or not you're a believer of such things, looking into the associations and the meanings behind different animals or objects that you want to draw can really ignite your imagination and your creativity and give you a deeper connection to the subject that you're drawing. Yeah! So I knew even before heading into my research session that ravens commonly were associated with death and darkness, and indeed in many various cultures and folklore, as I found, ravens are very much associated with death. But I was also really interested to see their association with guidance and wisdom and great change. Different cultures seem to have a very different take on the raven, some seeing it as a bad omen, others seeing it as a good one. But if there was one thread, one sort of theme I could find, or perhaps invent, that seemed to go across most of the various different views of the raven, at least the ones that I learned about during my limited 2-hour research session, was that this bird seems to always be associated with the world beyond, if you will. It's got inside info on the spirit realm, underworld, heaven and hell, you name it, it's got the juicy details. And perhaps, and I'm just purely hypothesizing here now, that is why it's been so linked to death, because as many believe, death is also the crossing over of worlds. Also, the fact that it's a bird that feeds on rotting flesh probably helps the whole death point too. And ravens seem to be a bird that does not really serve anyone unless it chooses to. It's very intelligent, very coy, and so it kind of lives by its own accord. It will create bonds and be loyal to those it chooses, and also hold grudges towards those it doesn't really like. It has its own very strong personality that will not be swayed by anyone. And whether or not you are a believer of the spiritual association of animals, it can't be denied that ravens are one of those animals that really has a presence. It's so stark in its appearance, being completely black, and its size, it's fairly large. And it is a very, very intelligent animal. It's one of the few birds that are capable of speech. And even though my raven visitor didn't make a sound during the time that I saw it, it just demanded attention with its gaze. Even if perhaps it was all just my Ravenclaw pride perceiving it as such. I am so sad that I wasn't able to get a picture, but I guess the raven showing itself to me was for me only, and only for the moment that it chose. So you may remember the sketches for these ravens from my previous video, and as you have been watching, I decided to try to paint over them. I'm using Turner Acrylic Gouache, and this is actually my very first time trying out acrylic gouache. I bought this set of paints and this sketchbook over the summer, but just never got around to trying them out until now. I'm also using a Sta-Wet palette for the first time. If you've never heard of a Sta-Wet palette, it's a closable palette that has a sponge inside of it that holds water and a piece of special parchment-like paper that you put on top to mix your paints on, and the moisture inside the palette helps to keep your paints from drying out. I had heard it was a really great tool for acrylics and acrylic gouache because those paints do tend to dry very quickly and you can't reactivate them once they dry out. So a Sta-Wet palette helps you waste less paint and also be a bit more relaxed while painting, knowing that you're not racing against the clock. And I must say, I've only used it once, but it works incredibly, surprisingly well. The surface of the paper does not feel very wet when you use it. I almost thought I didn't put enough water in the sponge at first, but I was very pleasantly surprised to open up the palette the next day and see that all my paints were still nice and juicy. Now, I was not intending for this video to be a Turner Acrylic Gouache review video because it is my very first time trying them. I haven't even swatched all the colors yet, but if you guys would like to see a dedicated video for that, please do let me know in the comments. But I must say that so far, I absolutely am in love with this medium. I have been using regular gouache for a couple years now, but I've never tried acrylic gouache until now, and for me at least, from my first impressions, it is probably the most intuitive traditional art medium I have ever used. It behaves exactly how I want it to and expect it to. The time it takes to dry on the paper is just the perfect length of time, and it just gives me all of the parts that I love from using regular gouache without any of the finickiness that I find with that medium. And though I know I still have a lot to learn when it comes to using acrylic gouache, it was just such a joy to paint with something that feels almost like an extension of my hand. I'm sure this intuitiveness is not the case for every single artist out there, and please certainly don't use my experience as a bar for what you should expect from this medium. Every artist works differently and prefers different materials and different mediums, and I think that is part of the journey and beauty of being an artist. We're all so different and unique, and half of the time it feels like a struggle and a fight to learn and improve and find our voice. But sometimes the universe aligns and your idea, medium, and mindset all sync up in harmony, and you're swept away to that magical place that comes when you're fully immersed in creating. And I'm sure all you artists watching this video know of that place I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you will. Just hang tight and keep exploring. Is acrylic gouache my new favorite medium? I don't know yet. I certainly haven't used it long enough to make that decision, and I don't think I will ever get tired of using lots and lots of different art supplies in my work. I've come to accept that being a little all over the place is part of who I am as an artist. But I am so grateful, at least, that this medium worked so wonderfully with this sketchbook page. As you probably have noticed, I wrote a little poem to accompany this piece. It was sort of my way of journaling this experience I had with the raven so that I can look back and remember it. But I only had about half of the poem done and was really struggling to fill in more. But then, I kid you not, between the days that I was working on this painting, I actually had a dream about my raven visitor, probably because it was just on my mind so much because of this painting and working on this video. But indeed, I had a dream. The raven was there. There was actually another raven, so there were two ravens in this dream. And one of them spoke to me, as if this story could not get any more ominous and fairy tale-like. But yes, this raven was speaking to me in my dream, and I can't actually remember most of what it said. That tends to happen to me like always. I can never remember what like people say to me in my dreams. I don't know, like do you guys have that same experience where you just like wake up and you can't remember what people were saying to you in your dream? But I do remember that this raven did not speak in the way that you would expect a bird to. Like it was not croaky. It spoke to me like a person would. Totally clear voice, full sentences, straight up human being voice. And of course, being in the dream, I was like, yeah, this is normal. So having that dream kind of gave me that last bit of inspiration to fill in the rest of the poem. I am certainly not the best poet in the world. I kind of just say things out loud, and if I feel like it flows well and sounds okay when you speak it, then I just go with it. That's the same way I write songs. I definitely struggled a bit with the very last line of the poem. I originally was going to write, "Meet again, it's up to you. My raven friend, I'll see you soon." Because, you know, it all rhymes nicely. But something felt arrogant to call this raven my friend. Maybe I'm going a little cuckoo here. I don't think it was my enemy, but friendship? I think that is really up to the raven to decide, not me. So I switched the word to guide. And with that, the story of my raven encounter concludes. Or does it? Dun dun dun! Thank you guys so much for watching and listening and spending some of your day with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for more, as that really helps out this channel. Also, be sure to drop a comment down below letting me know what you think of this sketchbook page, and have you ever had an interesting experience with an animal? Do let me know. I always love hearing those kinds of stories. They just feel so magical and mysterious. And I hope you guys are all having a great October. This is a busy month for artists. Many of you are probably participating in Inktober or perhaps a different daily art challenge. I am also participating for my 7th year in a row, I feel old now, of doing a daily art challenge during the month of October. But I'm taking it very chill this year, jumping around from different prompt lists and doing small pieces so that I still have time to make videos like this and spend time with my loved ones. But be sure to follow me on Instagram if you'd like to see my daily artworks. If you'd like to check out my shop where I sell books and prints and stickers and other artsy things, all that can be found on my website, Zaccura.com. I'll have the link to that as well as my socials and all of the materials that I used in this video linked down below in the description box. And until next time, stay awesome, stay inspired, always. See ya!